Okay. First, thank y'all for coming because we are in this situation, and I know it's hard to get out of the house, and so your efforts are very much appreciated because without y'all, we're kind of just doing this for us. So thank you for that. I think Marjorie and I have been working together for a few years now, and she had started working on kind of this body of work with maybe not intentionally on it becoming such a body of work. We've kind of grown in the process, and this show for me kind of came about mentioning a smaller size landscape painting, and I had come across an artist that was doing these really small paintings out of New York. Now they were like very expensive, but they were actually set within Texas. And so I mentioned that to Marjorie and shown her, and she was up for kind of exploring working in a smaller scale. So she called me after maybe a painting or two of doing this, was like, I'm really enjoying it, I want to continue to do it. And I was like, if you build a body of work, we will have a show of small scale paintings. And as she started sending me images, I just think she was really capturing the atmosphere that she can present at a larger scale in such a small scale. So we both, I think, got really excited about the work. With that said, you can see in the background all the white space around the paintings. I hope that that draws you in to kind of have an intimate kind of interaction with the small paintings and the landscapes, maybe a little more than you would with something larger. At least those are my hopes. And so with all that said, I'm excited about the show. I'd like to introduce Marjorie. She can kind of talk a little bit about herself and a little bit about where the location of these paintings are, and maybe a little bit just about the year she spent painting them. So, Marjorie.
Okay, well, I know half the people here, so that's good. Well, first of all, I want to start off by thanking Mr. Felder, Robbie, for supporting my work. I remember walking in the gallery, and I've raised 2 children. They're off on their own. We're grandparents going to see grandbaby we haven't met yet, leaving tomorrow. And you know, when you work full time, you're raising kids. I didn't paint full time, but once that, and there's one of them. This is my daughter. Not both of them, although they could probably pass. This is Mason. And but I really want to thank Robin for supporting my work. I was a little nervous, and he was drawn to it, and with his guidance has helped me kind of shape a little bit of more secure vision in what I'm trying to do, and by the support of the pieces sell, you know, and that's such a nice thing. So I think what was in my head really does speak to people. And I want to thank my husband, Brandon, who's videotaping. This year is 30 years for us, and for 30 years he has let me haul around way too much art stuff, because it's never ever left who I am. And I appreciate that, because we've never put a car in the garage. I paint as big as the one in the window, and sometimes bigger, and that's not the space for you know, painting. I don't paint in a bedroom, let's just say that way. I have a whole studio and tools and all kinds of stuff, so I appreciate his support, always. If it weren't for his passion for sports, it might have been an issue with us, since I work full-time, because Saturdays I will go in there and 12 hours later come out. But he has a passion for sports, so that makes him very happy that I don't annoy him with football and basketball and all those things. Although he's having a terrible time these days. The lack of sport. So I am a very lucky person that I've in my life been able to pursue two passions. I mean, most people are lucky to find one and kind of go for it. I've never been able to separate one over the other. And of course it's art, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but I'm an art educator, and I have been, I mean, I was teaching students before I finished grad school. So it's like 25 years now or so, in all kinds of places. My husband's retired military, so we've been all over the place. So I ran my own community center program in Europe, and college, and community centers, and you name it, any way I could get myself in front of students. And when we finally came back to the States and kind of settled here, I like to say I went off the deep end and got my certification. I did a couple years at the McNay in the education department, and I loved it. Who wouldn't love going to the McNay every day? But I kept wanting to teach more and more, so I got my certification. I've taught high school kids in Texas ever since, so this was my 15th year doing that, and I'm blessed to have been selected. I'm part of a program for San Antonio ISD. I really believe in the district. They're trying so hard to be a model program for urban schools, and just the effort to bring the arts to every elementary school is to be commended. And I'm part of a program where we're finding and servicing gifted visual arts students. And so that is a huge part of my life, 40, 50 hours a week or more. And then I do this. So my other passion being art. And it's just that thing, you know, that, no, I don't think artists can explain where it comes from. You know, it's been a part of my life, my whole life. It's the thing I probably got the most positive attention for as a poor kid out in the country, middle of nowhere in Michigan, and no art teacher, no art class, but I had a very supportive father. When he could, he'd buy me whatever drawing materials and things I wanted. So it's always been a part of my life, and I think when you kind of have to teach yourself and you have a thirst for it, you develop a little bit of a grit, and that you can just keep trying and keep trying. And so, you know, I pursued it. I have a Master of Fine Arts. I was in the military, served in the military to get money to go to college, and that's where I met this guy. And I actually didn't have a degree until after we were married, so did that the long, hard way with a child. And so, but I've never stopped. I've never stopped with the art. And he was completely supportive of pursuing an MFA at the University of Utah. And I was fortunate to get selected. As a very small program, but very strong in painting and drawing, and that's my master's, is painting and drawing. But so I can't shake it. I can't see myself with one or the other. I've been asked that in several job interviews. You know, what's more important, being an artist or being an educator?
Trick question.
I can't do it, because the kids inform me. Working with young people and their creativity, it pushes my mind to help them, and I'm so amazed at their brains and what they come up with, and informs my work and making me push myself. They're exhausting, they're exhilarating, and I believe so much in an art education as creating a full person. You're just not all there unless you get a solid art education. We don't know how to be human to each other. I think we can see the results of the decline in the arts and the way our culture is going right now. But so this art, I'll shift back to that, which is the reason we're here. We built basically our little dream house from scratch and got to pick everything, and we bought a lot. And it's just outside 1604 on the far west side, and it's up on a little hill. And when we picked the lot, I thought, wow, it's just high enough. I'll get to see, you know, the sunset every night, and that is true. When the house was done, we moved in December of 2018, like the 21st of December, and by January 1st, I had decided to give myself a problem, a challenge, and that I would only paint from that view off my porch for a year. That's all I would paint, because when you focus and you limit yourself, you can be more creative. So it was perfect for the way my brain is and the way I work, and that I don't really paint landscape to be nostalgic. I am intrigued with tiny little things that capture me more in an abstract sense. So in a piece like this space between the heavy, heavy cloud coming down and that orange, the painting's really about that. It's not about that field or, it's that moment right there. The sky changes constantly. The ground, the first few paintings that I started doing, they were more this size. And I'd bring them in, and there was more ground to them, and I paid more attention to the textures. So across the way, there's like a low hill, and there's texture with the trees and the way the light hits it. Sometimes there's this really weird green difference in the same green, same trees, but the way the light hits it. So that was intriguing to me for a while. But I take hundreds of photos of, ask Brandon, every night. I'll be like, oh my God, I gotta get out there, and I shoot photos because the sky is constantly moving, changing, and it's, I could sit there like the old folks and paint, for an hour, but it wouldn't look the same. And there'll be a moment like this one. The entire painting is because of that strange little pop of light that came through right there. And so I used my own photography to capture those moments. But as I work through the painting, things disappear, become less important. That first nugget of information is the thing that I need to capture. So if I try to sum up what you see in my work, in my body of work, is that I'm trying to figure out why I'm so interested in these strange little things, like a little blue line along the horizon. This one, when you get up close to them, like this is a violet line that goes along there, and the sky is very violet too, and that's probably a little exaggerated from reality, but that blue line is the reason that painting exists. So it's these little moments that I'm obsessed with trying to figure out, and I don't have an answer on why am I obsessed with this stuff. I'm an observer, I always have been. I was that quiet kid that sat there and just sort of watched everything going on, looked at the clouds all day. I grew up in the country, I didn't have a lot to do except be outside, so nature was always a part of my life. Another kind of funny example is, I remember being at the beach. I grew up in Michigan, and we'd go to Lake Michigan. In freshwater, I'm sorry, Texans, freshwater is it's like the ocean, but you don't itch when you get out. All my cousins would be, fighting and throwing stuff and all that, and I'm just sitting there watching the waves come and like noticing, wow, there's sort of a horizontal line, but this one's coming more forward, and look, that one gets wider as the white starts to roll over. So these patterns, these abstract things, I remember just being young and seeing stuff like that. I couldn't even explain it to anyone. No one, like my cousin would be like, whatever, That didn't make any sense to anybody. So now I understand that it makes sense to me. That's what I'm trying to do, is just sort of, the paintings are a record of that exploration of trying to figure out why I'm so attracted to certain moments and colors and patterns. So they're really quite abstract. A lot of my influence would be minimalist art, and as well as American luminous paintings, and I have several artists that I really respond to. I love square. I don't know why. I think because if I have to put a guess on it, it makes it more abstract. So it draws attention to that abstract part, this line, this stripe, this shape that is interesting to me. If it's longer and more traditional sized, it's kind of an instant read that it's a landscape, so maybe I'm thinking you'll come closer and take a look based on the square. I like grids. I like the linear nature of organizing things in groups like that. And so this particular set was an outcome of coming in and talking to Robbie, like he was talking about. I have another memory about us with that conversation about the small art. I was telling him about that I had always had a fascination with Dutch, 16th, 17th century Dutch paintings, and the amazing, they're not real big, they're maybe 16 by 20, and of course religious in nature, but here would be this interior room with Mary holding Jesus, or it's the Annunciation. And then there's a window off to the side in this room, which might be 3 inches by 2 inches wide. You start looking out that window, and here's the village and the rock and the stone of a building across the way. And then you see the path to lead out of the town, and then there's hills, and then there's animals, and then there's another village off in the distance, and then a storm coming in the sky. And that's all in this much space. And then the room is incredibly detailed as well, with every little shine on a piece of metal. Just fascinating to me that they could pack that much atmosphere in such a tiny space. And of course, they were masters of landscape as well. so that work intrigues me. So Robbie and I were talking about that, and so he did challenge me to kind of work that way, and then I just felt like the more I kept doing it, seemed like I was really intrigued with an evening look, and I thought that would unify the idea. He had introduced that artist to me, and I really liked the presentation of the artist's work, so I felt I wanted to limit myself even more. So I went to all evenings, and there's so, I can always see the storms coming from looking out. You can tell that my head is seeing where I live right now, just thinking about it, because I'm so visual. But when the storms come from the west, it's, and they typically come from that direction a lot. So I get these amazing kind of ever-changing points of view. This is a result of that exploration, and we're 18 months into my 1 year study, and I'm not tired yet. So I have 3 in the studio right now that I'm working on, and I bought a larger canvas. I tend to do that, go small, because I've made small paintings before, but never in an intentional series. But so I will go small, then paint big, then kind of medium, and so I'm feeling the itch to go a little bit bigger, but I'm not done. I don't know. It could be that I paint from that view till I'm 6 foot under. I don't know. It could be. It's never-ending source of beauty, and the land has shrunk because they became a lot more about the sky and the atmosphere. So, does anybody have any questions? I think I've talked enough.
Well, I just want to say that, like, in viewing the whole body of work, there's Marjorie has really done something special in the sense that she's captured in a really minimalistic package, not just the scale, but actually having like the composition be minimal with just a perfect amount of detail. So there's a beautiful balance in the paintings. And just one quick thing would be the only question I think we haven't touched on, Marjorie, for me, is the Spurs Ranch Road. So the series is titled Evening in Spurs Ranch Road, and then it kind of goes on to a little more atmospheric qualities. So Spurs Ranch Road is past 1604 in West San Antonio, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's our backyard, our lot backs up to that road.
So
It's
Spurs Ranch Road. Okay.
Moderately, they go way too fast on the road, so it's not like a dirt road. I thought that name was really cool.
It is a cool
It sounds
name.
like I live way out on a ranch or something.
Yeah.
In fact, that view across the road when we first got there was a field there, a lot of bluebonnets would grow there, but it was laid out for development, but it was like someone stopped doing it, so I thought, oh, I've got a good 5 years or so before.
Yeah. It's developing.
From our lot, there's not a house there right now, but I'm high enough that I still see. But the road, it's just there. I'm curious. I should look up the history of it. Who owned a ranch along there? There are some cattle, and occasionally they're out. So I'm in this suburb, and there'll be a cow walking around, and we go tell the developer salesman guy, and I'm like, okay, I'll call the farmer. So it's a little weird to be in the suburbs with a cow.
Sounds old time.
But yeah, it does. And so I just love the name of the street, and it wanders through the development area there. And that's all there is to that, really. I've always kind of just I don't give like symbolic titles to any of the work. In fact, giving a title is really hard for me because it's really a study of trying to figure out why I'm visually attracted to this and the beauty of it, and trying to capture this thing that might hopefully express to someone else that feeling of awe that I had when I saw it. So there's not other deep symbolism there. As an artist, I find out from other people what I'm about, which is really strange. I had a piece at the Art Institute here in San Antonio. They had invited local high school art teachers, I think as a way to kind of get kids over there to maybe go to school there. I had a piece up, and this other teacher was there. She also taught high school. And in fact, that painting that was shown there was the first one you sold here.
Okay.
And it was a lot like this work, but a big piece. And she said, "You paint exactly what our day is not." I thought, That's what I'm doing. I'm like trying to find the
That's the
mental
purpose.
thing that calms me down, because Miss Lankus, who is a high school biology teacher, she knows all day long. It's nonstop. They're exhausting, but you love them. And Melody was my student as a freshman.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Do you find these small things harder to paint than your larger ones?
They're equally as difficult. I think there's as much, just the I bought myself some of the like goggles to put on to try to do it. I couldn't do it because they made me nauseous, so I couldn't do it. But yes, they take as long time-wise as even a bigger piece, just because you can't really get your whole wrist into it, and it's a whole different ratio of pigment on a brush to kind of control that and not have it turn into muck real quick. So yes, they're difficult. It's difficult. I'm completely blown away when I see someone that works, because this is big compared to some artists that work small.
Really?
Yeah, there are artists doing like 2x2. I think the artists you showed.
They get small with lots of
like
detail.
5x7, and they were just amazingly photographic.
But that's an important part to this work, is that the detail is almost in the atmosphere, the minimalistic, presentation of them, or the fact that they have a low line, horizon line, and it's all sky, but all that atmosphere is detail.
Yeah. There's many layers,
Yeah.
many layers of color there that sort of builds that up.
And I want to ask you a question about the color and the lighting, because, they vary, vastly across all of them, the sunlight and the darkness, the shadows that they have. How much do you use any kind of filters when you take the photographs? And beyond that,
I run out there and go,
and so is it where you're looking at the color that's produced on photo, or is it memory that's creating these colors, or how do you get to these?
excellent question. A photo, I'm kind of old school and I like to actually print them. I just do cheap printing at Walgreens. It's the shape and yes, the color that I'm interested in. And I'll start off, like we've all seen that color right there in the clouds. It might be a little overly pink, but the photos that I get printed, or even I work off my iPad sometimes if I'm like, I really gotta work with this image and I don't want to take the time, but it starts off like it's kind of a combination. I have spent so much time, the whole time we were in Europe, I painted on location, outdoors, in plein air would be the term for that, and I guess I have a lot of memory built up of how color works and how light works and the atmosphere, so I'd say it's a little bit of both. Because sometimes the photos are just they're not what my memory is, and so I accentuate the color. And some of them, like the really violet one, the sky wasn't that violet, but it just worked for me artistically. There's a point in the painting where the painting takes over and the image is no longer the most important thing. I think keeping the abstract thing that was the most important reason that it exists is important for me to keep, but I can let detail change and disappear in other parts of the piece.
Well, cool. Well, thank everyone for coming again, and thanks Marjorie for the input on the paintings. We very much appreciate it. Congratulations on a great body of work.
Thanks for having me.